Jerry Pinkney from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, has been acclaimed an author and illustrator since 1964. He's illustrated over 100 books. His book, The Lion and the Mouse, won the 2010 Caldecott Medal, which is one of the highest honors a children's book can receive. Now, as we get started, I hope this is good inspiration as we begin building and layering our colors with watercolor and working with value. So beginning with the end in mind, let's get started on our watercolor lion. When you get a 9 by 12 piece of paper, you'll have a drawing guide that'll help you as you begin starting to draw your lion. As you can see in step number 1, I like to start out by drawing that little center part for the nose, the center part of my figure. So as I began this, I'm just following the steps as you see in the drawing guide. Starts out with an upside down U shape, and then it's got a triangle at the bottom. 2 lines up. Step number 3 moves into the eyes as well as the nose lines. Step number 4 moves into the circles where we move into the mouth and the rest of the head. Step number 5 moves into adding in ears and a little bit of a furry chin for the lion. You'll notice as I'm starting to draw steps 1 through 5, I really started to draw really lightly, because if I make a mistake, it's a lot easier to erase a skinny light line than a dark line. In fact, when you see me draw around this circle, I don't always just draw one circle. You can see some faint other circles, and then I'll darken up which line I think looks best. So that's why I always start light, and I'm not going to worry so much about little mistakes. Always draw light till you've got it right. And then the other thing that I'm looking at is when I started drawing around the circle for the lion's head, I noticed that it touched the top of the page. So I tried to do that with mine as well. Step number 6 starts moving into the texture lines for the fur. You'll add your fur lines around the eyes, on the cheeks and the forehead, the inner ears, and around the face. Lastly, go ahead and add some whiskers. You'll notice that the direction of the lines matter. We want the direction of the lines to match the direction of the hair that a lion would have. Okay, so where it's a vertical line, keep your lines vertical. A horizontal line will go side to side, and so on and so forth. Once you've got your lines right, you'll notice I'm going to start to darken them up a little bit so that I can see those lines, so that you can see them a little bit better too. Now, once I'm done with my pencil work, we'll continue onward. You can notice that the lines are starting to get darker. I've noticed that I've got my light lines and I've got some dark lines. Now that I've kind of figured out the basic shape, I'm going to darken them up so that we can see them better. Now, as I looked at some of the pictures and I began with my end in mind, I wanted my eyes, instead of looking to the right, to look towards the left. So I'm going to do a little bit of change. Again, it's okay to make mistakes. Just go ahead and do the best you can, and we'll continue onward. I changed the white line into my eyes so that it makes it look that my lion is adding in with the mouse that's in the corner. That's an optional step. If you do not want to draw the mouse, you do not have to. I decided I wanted to draw the mouse into my picture, so I wanted the eyes, instead of looking to the left, to start looking at the mouse. Make it a little bit more interactive. So again, I have another drawing guide that'll help you draw your mouse. You can start out with the eye, you can move into the snout, and then you can go into the chin or the mouth, the nose, the ears, a U shape for the body, arms, and a tail. Again, just like when you did your lion, draw it light until you've got it right, and you can go into adding in your own details and making it darker once you've got your pencil work done lightly. Now that I've got my design drawn in pencil, I wanted to talk to you more a little about value, making objects darker, shadowing or shading in some areas so that instead of it looking like a flat, two-dimensional surface, value is something that changes it and makes it more three-dimensional. So rather than using the tip of my pencil, I'm going to start using the side of my pencil. You can also use a charcoal pencil, but I'm just going to use the side of my pencil so that I can get some darker values put into my paper. I've sped it up a little bit because it's not really focusing in on drawing shapes anymore, but instead using my pencil as more of a painterly look, making it so that it's obvious, it's darker, it's painting in some of those pencil lines and making it so that it's obvious of what lines I really want to focus in on, what lines I really want people to be able to see. The drawing guide at the beside me helps me see which areas should be dark, which areas should be light. And that pencil will help me, the drawing beside me will help me as I can see some of those areas getting really, really dark and some areas staying light. I love the way adding in some darker values makes this project already start to come to life better. Now, let's get started moving in towards the painting step of this project. Once you're done in pencil, I want you to take a white oil pastel. I'm focusing in on areas that I want to stay white, remain white. It's like a watercolor resist. When I've got some white oil pastel, it makes it so that my paper remains white. Now, I'm not really worried if some of the pencil lines get into the oil pastel and smear and smudge. That's okay. That's going to be fine for my end in mind. When I grab that white oil pastel, I'm okay with any areas that smudge some of that pencil line. Perfection is not what we're going for here. What I wanted to talk to you today about is building up values. No one's going to notice any small imperfections. Do the best you can. Please don't worry about it. As you can see, some of these pencil lines, some of them look like little scribble lines. Some of them look like little wavy lines. And I'm not paying attention to every single line being perfect, but instead looking at the overall picture and starting to build up values. This is not my end in mind. Don't get hung up over every single pencil line. So, as I grabbed my white oil pastel, I'm thinking about adding in values. What areas of my lion do I want to remain white? So that handout that we used that had my value changes on it, the blacks and the whites, look at those focus areas that had white on it. Use your white oil pastel there. Now, when you grab your paints today, I want you to focus in on how many times I go back to the water, then to the paint. You see, when I start with my yellow paint today, I'm adding in my water, dipping it to my paint, then my paper. Water, paint, paper. Water, paint, paper. I don't want my yellow to be really, really dark right now. The colors will start to blend gradually. So I'm starting with my lightest layer first. Once I've finished with my lightest layer and I've got my project with my yellow paint completely covering the page, I will then go ahead and start dipping it into the orange. Okay, now again, just like before, when I'm taking my oranges, I'm now starting to focus in on the darker values that I used in pencil. So as I've grabbed my orange, I'm following those dark pencil lines and I'm starting to develop some shadows, trying to make my project look as 3D as possible. The areas that have lots of pencil, add in some of that orange. I love the way that the orange and yellow start to mix together and it's starting to become more of a three-dimensional shape. When I'm done with my orange, I'm going to turn it up again and go to the next darker value. Again, focusing in on blending in my oranges and my browns and letting my oranges and my browns start making those even darker areas. You might not use as much brown as you did in orange. Adding streaks of brown, again, focusing in on those areas that are dark in the background, making those areas dark brown. really starts to make this project come to life. It's not looking so flat anymore, but instead, starting with my light values, yellows to oranges to browns. For the last step in this project, you'll notice I'm using my same paintbrush, but the tip of the brush, the smallest part of the brush possible, and using less water. I want this to look more like a marker. If you prefer not to use the black oil if you prefer not to use black paint for this, you don't have to. If you feel like the paint will start running and blending in with some of your other colors, by all means, you may also use a black marker. If you feel more comfortable using a black marker or a black oil pastel for this step, that's fine. Go ahead and do that. This is the step that takes your project and really defines the areas that make up your project. What areas do you want people to be emphasized with? What areas do you really want to stand out? What areas do you want to make look like a shadow? So these are the small details that we'll start putting on into the project to make your project come to life. It's really taking that next step and putting in those final touches to outline, design, and create this three-dimensional lion. I love the color buildup, I love the designs, and I love the patterns. The use of value in this project really makes this project look great. I hope you had fun with this assignment. I know it's not for everybody, but I just wanted to give you a try of building up some of these values and maybe surprise yourself and see what you can do. See how you can build up your colors and make some fantastic artwork. I hope you had fun, everybody. Make it a great day. Happy art making.